Hey everyone, good morning, good morning. I'm just going to do a quick video about dialectic deception, and it's a tactic, a psychological tactic, usually applied in Marxism. And what it is, if I was to put it simply, is that two conflicting things can be true at the same time. And how I put this and I apply this to the current situation is you have two conflicting good cop, bad cop play out of Todge and his brother. While they're both in the US applying for trademarks, moving business over to the US and becoming global advocates for globalism and for globalist policy. And I think everyone is stuck with choosing a side and a belief and an for goodness sake, ideology. And I think that's intentional. I think the communication strategy has been, with the drugs, with the stupidity, with everything that goes against our core values, Todge is representative of that. And his brother is a godlike human. He's like that Persian god, Xerxes? That's what he's like, if you want to put it up in that way. That's how the communications strategy has been laid out before us. And the reason why I bring this up is because I had no idea about this. I don't really follow articles and all that stuff, but I didn't know that the Princess and Prince of Wales have actually applied for a trademark for merchandise and propaganda in the US, but through their British company. Now, I know IP law and I know international IP law. I know how costly that is to have a British company and to apply for US IP. But at the same time, I also know that Serco, who man, I had to pause because I'm Australian and there was a spider walking across the floor. Okay. Where was I? IP and Serco runs all contracts and outsources the entire application process for any trademarks at the US Trademark Office. Serco is a British company where some of the shareholders include the royal family. I'll just leave it as that. But people don't say, well, they don't own the trademark office. Well, why would a British company... I mean, they're outsourcing all government services. So even the US government, Australian government, UK government, they're outsourcing almost all their services and military contracts, especially in the US, to Serco. So you can play with the political wording of who runs what, but if you're outsourcing your services, if you're outsourcing I guess key intellectual property of your nation, then I'll just leave it as that, hey, because I know I'll be argued against and all that jazz. So they've got a trademark going in. So I don't think, even though it may be costly, I don't think it's going to be difficult if you pretty much have shares in Serco and you're applying for a trademark. I wonder also how costly it really was for them, or if it was for free. But there you go. So I just wanted to put through how interesting it is. Now, this was an example I was sent a while ago, but I didn't find it particularly, I read about it, I found it interesting, and I was like, well, that is quite relevant to how it's being applied between the two brothers as of, during this whole narrative. But I think with this IP status and the articles that have come out, when you compare when Todge and Nut left for Megxit and they applied for 400, IPs or trademarks 6 months before, and it was like, it was an intentional smear of Nut and Todge, in comparison to the articles that are coming out now, where Catherine, who is recovering from, if it's true or not, recovering from cancer, they're now commencing business, or have been trying to commence business in the US. I just find that already, just personally, I find that really inappropriate. But that when these articles have come out just recently of them putting these trademarks through in US, Catherine and William, that it's for the greater good, it's for mental health causes. And, of course, Nut's involved with hating it, with, causing this chaos, this battle between them. So you focus on that rather than what's actually happening. Because when you kill off and you strip down both of the PR strategies for either of the brothers, you've got the exact same activity. They're both trademarking in the US, which is political interference. They're both trademarking in the US. Well, is it political interference? Well, it's for causes, right? It's to change policy. So that's probably where I'm going with that, which is my opinion. I will put that in there. It is my opinion. I could be very, very wrong, and you can prove that to me. I'm more than happy to have discussions. Now, so that's all happening. Now, this example is the deliberate dialectic deception, which also, as I said, Marxism uses, that there are two conflicting sides rather than both that can actually be true. So this example says, you as a ruler have two sons. You dress one in red and the other in blue, or we say good cop, bad cop. You get followers of your red son, bad cop, to hate, of your red son, good cop, to hate the followers of your blue son, bad cop, and vice versa. You fund both sides and orchestrate wars between them where only the followers get killed. Your sons don't get killed, and all three of you enjoy your power, laughing at the stupidity of the masses from behind the theatre stage. The wars are orchestrated to catalyze major changes which only serve the interests of the ruler and his sons, and which would otherwise be considered unacceptable to the masses of followers on both sides. And I think that is the key driving point that you really have to absorb, and I have to absorb, is if this narrative was not played out, if there was no good cop, bad cop, polarizing, conflicting sides, where both are true, where they're both playing global advocates and trying to change global policy in the US and moving towards globalism and a globalist empire and being representative of that empire, if you didn't have this narrative that has played out for years now, that it would be considered unacceptable. The heir didn't come into, publicly, didn't come into the US before his brother, the spare, moved over to the US, supposedly. I don't believe he ever did. But this is the whole narrative, right? Before the US move of the spare, the heir didn't launch Earthshot, didn't launch anything, didn't go to Boston. That was all a part of it, and it was always right on time, like still fresh off the plate, where Todge had done something really bad, and the PR had conflated and it had, the PR made it so that your focus was on the terribleness and the how bad and amoral Todge and Nut are, and then the savior comes in and it's like, oh yeah, we'll show you, Nut and Todge, and you're completely distracted by this absolute shit, while you're not questioning why a second prince of the monarchy would be going to the US to do tours. If you're from the monarchy, if you're under the monarchy, like an Australian, a Brit, a Canadian, a New Zealander, etc., you would very well know that that's a huge red flag when the royal family start moving out of the area. And it's different when they're visiting, presidents and so forth, and having those discussions. This is like a public arena, kind of like gossip of like being liked and being accepted, and it's actually towards political agenda and policy. So that's very, very different than visiting the president. Even if those discussions with the president were all about politics, that was completely hidden from us. So then to have these visits very timely during this narrative, it was completely unacceptable before. It would be highly questionable. As I said regarding the former Prince Charles, when he was conducting any of his underground climate change club chats and events in Europe especially, it was very well hidden what exactly was being conducted. And what was actually published was, he just said that it was his opinion of something or other. It wasn't like, for the equitability of the world, we need to change policy. Time is running out. We need to move fast. We need to innovate. We need to come up with solutions and make changes. It wasn't that. That is actually being a political advocate and an activist. So that is very different, and that would be considered highly inappropriate, which still is, but it's been blurred, and only now has it been deemed appropriate psychologically for us, for the masses, that IP, that there's trademarks in the US by the soon-to-be king of the British monarchy. And as I've said before, Todge paved the way for that, and that is Todge's role. And you can see that clearly, I hope, at this point, that we have a literal example. And I'm going to show you now the articles that came out in comparison to one another. Now, what I said here is dialectic deception of two conflicting sides being simultaneously true. The heir and the spare are executing a global monarchy strategy. That is true. How it's played out is that there's two conflicting sides, but there isn't. And you're thinking one can be One is correct, one is good, one is bad, one is right, one is wrong. When either both are wrong or both are right, but either way, it's how it's portrayed. However, when both issued American trademarks, how the media portrayed them was to oppose one another despite doing exactly the same thing. Now, I want to show you here this is an article by Daily Mail, of course, Royal Rota, January 2020, a royal cash-in. How Prince Harry and Meghan Markle trademarked over 100 items. Oh, sorry, not 400. I got that wrong. 400 million. 100 items from hoodies to socks 6 months before. See the capitals? 6 months before. Split with monarchy. So they're ingraining in you, embedding in you the concept that they were cunning, that this was deception and betrayal, and that it was all okay to do this. Do you really think the royal family would have no idea 6 months prior to them leaving that they were applying for intellectual property? Do you remember the agreement that Todge and Nut could apply for any intellectual property? This is an agreement with the royal family, with the communications. They could apply for any trademarks. The agreement was, you can trademark anything, just nothing with the word royal in it. So before these trademarks would ever see the light of day, without the applications, and Todge and Nut wouldn't be making the applications. That is just ludicrous. Fucking ludicrous. It would have to be the palace itself and the palace communications, all their lawyers. I'm sure they're lawyers. It's IP law. Do you know how complex IP law is? You would also have to know American law and the class system for intellectual property in the US, because it's international IP. That's even more complex. So they would need to be partnering with US lawyers, IP lawyers, and an IP law firm. They take you for stupid plebs. So that all being said, 6 months before they even left the UK, supposedly, them applying and agreeing that royal wouldn't be even trademarked, then this would all be set up by the palace themselves. And then they've created this story that Todgett and cunning. And you can see that I'm not for either side. Nut and Todge went with the narrative of the media is out to get us. It's pure evil. That's why we have to change policy, of course. That's why we're in America and want privacy. But they tried to make it credible with the $1 or $1 win court battle with Daily Mail, which was a complete and utter farce and set up and staging. But that all being said, they've let all these narratives play out about how cunning they are, how bad they are. With Daily Mail. Daily Mail have said this, you can see in this article, but they've let that slide. Can you see the hypocrisy and the fact that this is all orchestrated, all of it. You can't have one without the other. Okay? If Daily Mail have lied about these sorts of things, then why wasn't that brought up in the court case? I mean, Daily Mail has gone with any instruction by the palace and so have Nut and Todge, even in America. So I think that's what's interesting. Moving on, this is the new articles, of course, by British mainstream media. Nut is concerned over Kate and William's US trademark move. Of course not, Todge. Todge has to be now protected, and his rebranding built up. So Nut's going to fall to the wayside. Nut is no longer credible, and it's all about Nut hating on William and Catherine, which actually still makes no sense whatsoever. It's a distraction if you focus purely on why the hell is the heir and his wife applying for IP in America. Is that not political interference or foreign interference and treason as equal to Todge? Yes, it is. Why isn't this covered by YouTube channels, by videos, by everyone? Why isn't there an outrage and uproar right now? The people that are exposing the political interference of Todge and Nut for years now in the US, why aren't they covering this? If they are, I support you. If they're not, I don't understand why. Why wouldn't you be? And this is another article here. This is just to portray that, see how they changed the imagery. So there's no like frowns or concerned Nut and Todge imagery. It's happy, it's blissful, it's radiant, Catherine and William, and it's that big American move inside their plans about mental health causes, which again is political interference. Why would you be concerning yourself over mental health causes in America? Makes no sense. So that's what I want to just put out there at the moment, is this dialectic deception, this manipulation that's being played out. It's also being played out, I believe, in the YouTube community, and I want you to take note of that. I want you to take note of social media as well, because there's polarizing sides. I've just recently had hate campaigns against me, which is fine. I can handle it. I'm a big girl. But they're trying to polarize my views, and they're trying to polarize my content into saying that I've changed, that I am now with the Dark Lord. I am now paid off and bought. And I want to make this very clear, because I can see some plays, some moves happening at the moment that, I'm not. I think I've also been told and messaged and contacted privately by people insisting that I change my presentation on here, insisting that I blur the lines by not accusing the royal family of anything, by not blaming them or making them accountable for anything. And I find that in itself, without even concern over who's told me this, I find that is manipulative, because, well, as an Australian, we're very direct, and that's what I feel I bring to the table. So then I feel like if I was to change my presentation, that would be deceptive to you. But also, you've had for years now, you've had YouTube accounts presenting this information. You've had YouTube accounts not being clear with you, blurring lines, confusing you, keeping you preoccupied, distracted, deflected with absolute shit, with moon bumps alone, with just things that are very limited, that you're blocked by this invisible wall of not asking any further, not getting any further. There are things that are being presented now without proof, and I'm wondering why this is all happening. This being said, I've come through, and because I've been clear and consistently clear, I'm cutting through these years of YouTube content within weeks. I know that because of how I'm coming across, I'm being labelled as aggressive, that I do not take other people's opinions, that I do not accept other people's arguments or counterclaims. No, I do. I've been very clear with this. I do accept counterclaims. You actually have to challenge that, though, with actual proof, not gaslighting and bullshit. And my aggressiveness is my Australian directness. And there are people that online that have used that to make it as though I'm aggressive, that I do not accept other people's opinions and insight. I personally do not like opinion. Okay, that's why we're here. That's why we have got into this place of mass confusion and blurred lines, which for me is a part of this dialectic deception, and this is why I'm talking about it. Because everyone has an opinion and everyone's using their opinion, and then they're asking, what do you think, and leaving it open when they're not. If you're wanting to ask somebody what they think, you need to create a scenario and a platform with every alternative imaginable, with clear differing arguments. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, it could be that the royal family is doing this, and it could be that Nat and Todge are doing this. What do you think? Not, it could be that Nat and Todge are doing this. Here's everything that I'm showing you that Nat and Todge are doing this. What do you think? That is not an open debate. That is not critical thinking. That is not application of any sort of thinking and reflection and welcoming counterclaims. So I think blurred lines is how we've got here. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has them. I have them, okay? And I have used them, but I've used them based on what I've seen on patterns. And this dialectic deception that's being played out is a pattern, and it's being used against us in many ways. Now I'm getting to the example that I want to also bring up is the dialectic deception of Mexiteers versus the Sussex Squad. There is an appearance that there is opposition, that there are Mexiteers and that there is a Sussex Squad, when no one is actually arguing the fact that this could be a Uni-party, that this whole polarization, which also is toe-in-toe and aligns with the creation of the dialectic deception and polarization and conflicting ideals of Todge and the heir, that, or Todge and Nut, or Nudge, and the heir and his wife, that this goes hand in hand with Mexiteers and the Sussex Squad, or the Derangers and the Sugars. It's exactly the same sort of polarizing, conflicting sides. When if you just look at these examples of the IP, there's no actual sides. So then this negates the whole argument that there's such a thing as Mexiteers and and Sussex squad, unless, like I'm talking about, if they're purely paid by Todge and Nut, which would be the royal family, would it not? If their income is from the royal family, would it not be the royal family? Would it not be the monarchy that's paying for this? This is another thing that then it needs to be discussed. Like, how are they paying for this? Either way, they'd be paying for both sides to create this narrative. But this is dialectic deception played out even before us with people, supposed people, and YouTube accounts that are supposedly for Megxit or for, how should I say? They're either pro royal family or pro Princess Catherine and Prince William, or they're pro Nut and Todge, when there's really no side. So I think it's, as well, you've got to understand then what is the motive and what goal are these two different sides steering towards. Are they both for censorship? Are they both for the same, or for political means, for political ends? Why isn't the actual truth being spoken that there are no opposing sides, and clearly that the royal family are involved, and that both the heir and the spare are global advocates pushing towards global policy in the US? Why isn't that so fucking clear? It's right in front of us. Why isn't that being discussed? And so I know this is a massive rant. I know I'm going to get hate for this in my comments. I know I'm probably going to be called unstable on Twitter, and all of these crazy hate campaigns will ensue. I don't give a fuck. You can call me crass. That's your opinion. I respect your opinion. But again, I'm not going to change how I'm presenting this. I'm being honest with you. You're not going to get that elsewhere. You're not getting that elsewhere. And there's dialectic deception at play. So I want you to take note of how it's being played out in many different areas. And that's the reason for this video today. I wanted to point out that this is a very smart tactic that's being used by many, many, many people and many, things that are pretending to be people. There are many motives involved in this. Maybe it's the same motive all wrapped into one big ball, but it's the same team, all in all. But I'm definitely not a part of it, because the truth I am now presenting to you is considered dangerous, and I've been asked to blur the lines for you. And my last question is, would you like that? Would you like to continue the way we've continued all of this time, with this confusing narrative and the question of why and the question of how? I would rather an open discourse where, even if I'm wrong, that we have open debate, that it's not like Laura's crazy, this can't be right, she's going to be cancelled, she has to be a sugar, she has to be a Megxiteer, she has to be a part of the Uni-party. Okay? That is a part of censorship. So what I want to know is, what sort of world do you want on here? Because that's what I'm trying to promote. I'm trying to promote an open platform, where we get to these articles and just speak common sense, and just really critically think about these patterns and how they've been played out, And history is important if you go back to the old articles and so forth. But I just also want to mention, do not be fooled by this fake discourse that's being laid out before you on here and in social media. This is not an open discourse. I'm more than happy to have chats with people. I'm more than happy to just talk to people and even listen to their arguments and their claims. But I'm also, there also should be a space and an environment where you can disagree, and that not everything is true, and also that you need proof to back it. So yeah, more rants from Laura Poirot, the crazy nut conspiracy theorist that's anti-royalist. See you guys.